Welcome to Formosa Dream Chasers.
We're your hosts, Mary Ann
and Qing-En.
Please join us as we explore the journeys amazing people take in pursuit of their dreams.
And get insights from their experiences.
Let's hit the road
and get started. Hi everyone! Today we have a very special guest who achieves dreams of becoming part of Taiwan's national dragonboat team.
In fact, his team was one of the 9 teams representing Taiwan in the recently concluded 16th IDBF World Dragonboat Racing Championships in Thailand. IDBF meaning International Dragonboat Federation, by the way.
And we are going to chat with Mr. Lynn F. Lee, also known as Li Donglong, about his experiences and how his dream came to be. Lynn, please say hi to our listeners and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello everyone, my name is Lynn and I was born and raised in Chattanooga, Tennessee in the United States. My parents are both from Taiwan, and so I used to visit Taiwan many times in the summer growing up, and I eventually moved back to Taiwan in August of 1993. The original plan was to study Mandarin Chinese for 1 year, maybe teach some English in a cram school on the side, make some money, but my plans changed and morphed over time and I ended up becoming a permanent resident, so I never left.
So to give everyone some background, I met Lynn way back in 2002 when I was still studying Mandarin myself at the National Taiwan Normal University. I met him when we became teammates of the Mandarin Training Center's Dragonboat team. So I never really had the chance to sit down and talk to Lynn in depth about how he got into dragonboat racing. So Lynn, thank you for this opportunity. First question would be, how long have you been dragonboat racing and how did you get into the sport?
So I've been paddling for 29 years now and
Wow.
I've already competed in 113 competitions.
Oh wow, okay.
The interesting thing is I kind of fell into the sport unintentionally. Like I said, I moved back to Taiwan in 1993 with my girlfriend at the time, and it was she who joined the Mandarin Training Center Dragonboat team in 1994, and she tried to get me to join with her. And I was a night owl at that time. And I was
yeah.
Yeah, I was like...
I hear you.
Yeah, so when I heard that their training schedule was 5 days a week at 6:30 in the morning, which meant I had to get up at 5:30 in the morning, and I had to do this for like 2 or 3 months straight, I was like, no thank you. So I said, I'll just be a cheerleader, I'll be a photographer, I'll record your journey in this competition, but I'm going to give it a pass. And so she paddled, she raced, it was cool, and then the next year she's like, I'm going to join again, and I'm like, I still don't have any interest in doing this. But my teacher at the Mandarin Training Center, like they had the small classes, 3 to 5 students, she was pressuring me to join because 2 of my classmates were already on the team, and she knew that I was relatively physically fit because I cycled everywhere, I was doing judo, and she's like, the school needs people who are active and who are strong to paddle, so you should really, consider it. And I'm like, all right, fine, I'll try it out. And so by that time, the training had already started, and I actually joined roughly halfway into the season, and I immediately fell in love with it. And I'm like, this is awesome. I should have started doing this earlier. And so that's how I ended up paddling.
Okay, so some other things we wanted to ask, like I mentioned that you joined the international dragonboat races in Thailand. So did you always dream of being part of the national dragonboat team, and how did this come about?
Being on the national team, I mean, obviously, if anyone had a chance to become an Olympian and represent their country in the Olympics, it's like a huge honor, and it's great, and it's fantastic. So everyone would probably love to do that if they could. For me, first of all, I mean, dragonboat racing isn't even an Olympic sport. There were talks about it being an exhibition sport in the 2008 Olympics when Beijing was hosting it, but it ended up not happening. There's been international competitions, but it's all been fairly recently. So the International Dragonboat Federation that you mentioned wasn't actually established until the 90s. Despite the fact that, dragonboats had thousands of years of history, the international framework to regulate the competitions and to make things fair and whatnot, the rules, that wasn't established until the 90s, around the time that I started paddling.
Okay.
So yeah, when I first joined, it was just like, this is fun, the Mandarin Training Center, join the team, maybe get some prize money or whatever, but I wasn't entertaining any thoughts of joining a national team or representing Taiwan because there wasn't really anything for me to join at that time.
Okay.
Also, the team I was on, we were paddling for a school, a language center. So I was a student, all my teammates were students, we're poor, we're not working. We couldn't really afford to travel abroad and compete in these great competitions. And then there would be some races abroad that I think the Taiwan Canoeing Association, which is what Dragonboat falls under, they would try to send teams abroad to compete in these small races. And which team got to go to abroad to compete was, they'd have a small race and they'd see which is the strongest team. So it was chosen by team and not by qualify individual. You know, I'm on a language center team. The chances of our team representing Taiwan, we're not even Taiwanese, we're a bunch of foreigners. You know, it never even crossed my mind. So it wasn't until I started racing internationally, like I started joining other teams and competing in races outside of Taiwan, that I started getting more information about what the international scene was like. And I had some friends who were on the U.S. national team, and they were telling me about the trials that they had to go through to get on the team. And it was interesting because, you know, in Taiwan, everything is chosen by team. Here, Mr. Canoe is the strongest team. They're usually the ones that represent Taiwan. But in the U.S., it's like a dream team. So they try to pull paddlers from all over the U.S. They don't choose a specific team. They choose specific paddlers. So if you're strong enough, you can qualify, then you can join the national team. So it's only around that time that I started entertaining thoughts, that'd be cool if I could be on the national team and join this way. Of course, by this point, I'm already in my late 40s, and it's like, you know, I can't compete with people who are in their 20s physically. But then, you know, my friends on the national team, they're like, you know, well, there's divisions. There's senior division A, B, and C, which is, you know, 40 plus, 50 plus, 60 plus. So, you know, you could try to join and compete against people who are in your own age range.
Okay.
And so that's when I started, you know, seriously thinking, hey, maybe this is something I could do someday.
Cool. What was the next step to actually doing something? Or was it more like you just let it?
When I started getting this information, this was like in 2019. So this was my friend, his name was Christoph. He was my roommate at a dragonboat competition in Malaysia. And then, of course, 2020 COVID hit. So everything was shut down. Everything was canceled. The World Championship dragonboat races were canceled. It was kind of just on the back of my mind. But at that point, there's not much that could be done. And then this year, things started opening up again. Mm-hmm. And then there was a lot of talk about teams from Taiwan going abroad to race in the World Championships this year. In fact, I think this is the year that Taiwan had the most teams ever going abroad.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so things kind of just fell into place pretty nicely. I have friends on the Shedzedao Dragonboat team, and when I turned 50 a year ago, they were saying, you know, we're going to have a Changjingzu, which is a senior division race. Are you 50 yet? I'm like, I just turned 50. They're like, join us. Like, yes, we got a young paddler on our team. I was friends with them, and they pulled me on. And so this year, when they were talking about going to Thailand to compete and represent Taiwan, I'm like, hey, do you have a spot for me? Can I join? And the coach, Chen Wenshang, he's like, we're hoping to put together a team. We want to compete in the 60 plus, the senior C division, because we think we have better chances of winning in that division. If we don't have enough people, then we'll pull you in. We'll register for the senior B division and the 50 plus category, and you'll have a spot. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. But then they ended up getting enough people, and so they're registered for the 60 plus team. I'm like, okay, so there's no spot for me because I'm not old enough. But their team manager, He Yifan, she's like, hey, I know another team. They're pretty strong. It's they're called the Sun Never Sets team.
That's a nice
or Never
name.
Sunsets. They're based off from Haika Dasha, which is the National Taipei Marine University or something. But she's like, yeah, they're a strong team and they want to go, but they don't have enough people. So try joining them. And I met up with them, and I ended up being able to make it onto their team. And it was like a dream come true.
Awesome.
And how do you prepare for training or a competition?
You mean in general, or like for this specific international, like the World Championships?
Maybe both. Like, how do you train in general and also as a team?
So, like when I first started Dragonboat, again, it was with the Mandarin Training Center team, and they're a very intense team. Like they're probably the best foreign team at the time, and it's mainly because their schedule. Like they practice 5 days a week, rain or shine, 6:30 to roughly 8 or 8:30 in the morning, and for like 3 months, maybe sometimes 4 months straight. And they, you know, the training schedule involved going to the track, you know, running, sit-ups, pull-ups, push-ups, all that kind of stuff to get your endurance up. And then we would go to the swimming pool with paddles and practice, you know, how to hold the paddle properly, how to put it into the water, how to pull, etc. And then once the race organizers allowed us to use the boats, we'd immediately go to the river and start paddling on the river to try to get our synchronization and timing together. It was basically just that intense 3 to 4 month training session. And then after that, you know, there were no other races. There was no dragon boats you could use.
Because the school didn't have dragon boats per se. They were on loan from the city government?
So the dragon boats in Taiwan at that time were pretty much all owned by the governments.
Right.
So they would provide the boats for the races, but they usually didn't do so until maybe maybe a month before the race. So it's only within the past maybe decade or so that teams started buying their own boats. My own team, Team Max, we have our own boat. We bought it in 2015. The early years, it was impossible to train for dragonboat year-round. In I think it was around 2012 that Bitan in New Taipei City, there were 2 small dragonboats left there year-round, and teams that were interested in practicing could start to use them and, get the training as much as they wanted, pretty much.
Next question would be like, what would be the challenges, would you say, a dragonboat racer would have in their career? At first, I didn't know that you actually had age divisions.
Well, Taiwan itself doesn't really have those age divisions. There aren't enough teams here to just justify having different classes, like different such fine-tuned divisions.
Okay.
Like even the women's division, the open women's division in Taiwan is usually very small. There's usually like only 8 or 9 teams, right? Whereas the mixed division and the open division will have 50, 60, 70 teams. So if you're having
That's a big disparity.
Yeah, there aren't a lot of women teams.
Right.
So if you try to separate that even further, like, age categories, 40, 50s, you're going to have maybe 2 or 3 teams, and it's like...
It's not much of
a race.
Because
right?
if you have 2 or 3 teams, you're all guaranteed to win. First, second, and third place.
Something like that, yeah.
Oh, I see.
Right.
But internationally, that's when you have the
when you get the really big competitions, then you get the much finer division.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like it's a potentially long-term type of sport.
Definitely.
What would be the challenges a dragonboat player?
Athlete,
okay.
competitor.
Would have in their career. Like it can be physical or psychological or institutional. What would you say are the challenges? Are there any?
Honestly, the biggest challenge is getting out there and doing it.
That's true.
Like you said, there's different positions. You can be a paddler, you can be a drummer, you can be a steers person. And obviously the best position, in my opinion, is being a paddler, and you need the most paddlers. But I mean, paddling on the left versus the right. Some people are good at both. Some people only stick with one side. So you really just need to get out there and try it and see what works for you physically. But yeah, in terms of challenges,
here's a question. Since you only row on one side, does that mean...
Paddle.
Oh, paddle, sorry. What's the difference? I row, you use both arms. Is that the difference?
Yeah, in Chinese it's, hua chuan. Hua is a single verb, but in English it's fine-tuned. So paddling is you're using a paddle, it's free, it's not locked to the boat, and you're going forward. So the boat is moving forward. Rowing, you have 1 or 2 oars or paddles that are locked to the boat. They're fixed. And you're going backwards. So there's a huge
the movement
difference.
of the body to get the boat moving to the direction you want.
Correct. So crew teams are rowing. They're going backwards.
Yeah.
And then dragon boats or kayakers or SUP, stand-up paddle boards, they're paddling, they're going forward. And the paddle's free and it can be moved around. And that distinction, like, I didn't know that distinction for the first 6 years that I participated in the sport. I wrote an article for the Taiwan Review about dragon boat racing, and my friend, after it was published, he's like, you used the wrong verb. It's not rowing, it's paddling. I'm like, what? And that's when I finally realized, okay, there's actually a distinct difference between the two.
Okay.
Yeah.
Paddling.
Paddling.
Okay, since most of the time you only paddle on one side, this is going to sound like a silly question, but does that mean your arms, the muscles in your arms, don't even out?
That is actually absolutely correct. It's not a silly question. That is probably one of the biggest challenges that most people will find, is that if they want to get a workout, they're working out their body unevenly. So if you're only on one side, that side's going to get stronger.
More fit. Right?
More fit. Ideally, if you have time, you should try to switch sides and paddle on both sides. But it's hard to do because, many teams want their paddlers to be locked in a fixed position. They don't want them jumping back and forth. Yeah, it can be hard.
But when you train, does the coach let you switch back and forth? Or is it not really because they expect you to stay on one side?
Probably depends on the team, but most, like for the Mandarin Training Center, their program is 3 to 4 months long. They don't have an off season. They don't participate in all the races outside of Dragon Boat Festival. The students are only competing or representing the school for the Dragon Boat Festival. And because it's such an intense, short 3 to 4 month cram program, they don't have time to entertain people going back and forth. Like they only have 1 month on the water. Now, like teams like my current team, Team Max, we practice year round. We welcome new paddlers, and they have weeks or months to adjust and see which side they prefer, or do they want to do both, because we have races year round and there's always turnover, and we're happy to try to switch people around and get them more balanced workouts.
Okay.
Hey guys, please tune in to part 2.
As Lynn continues to chat with us about dragon boat racing.
Again, this is Qing En.
And Mary Ann. See you guys next Sunday. Bye.